Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Paps Talk. Thank you guys for tuning in. To everybody that's been supporting the show, you guys are fucking amazing. We have, as you know, the hot topic of right now, the campaigns, all the run for mayor. We have one of the mayoral candidates here with us right now, Mr. Nino Chavez. Let's get into it. Hit the motherfucking intro. Mr. Chavez, how's it going, my friend?
I'm doing really good. It's been a couple months since the last episode.
It definitely has. It definitely has, and that's why I'm excited to have you on. But also because I've seen your campaign, and I feel like that's something that has resonated with me, and I feel like a lot of the listeners would get to know you a little better by having this in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
Having said that, we are going to dive directly into it. Just in case, for those that do not know, a very brief introduction from yourself to the listeners of Paps Talk.
Sure. Well, my name's Nino Chavez. I've longtime business owner, run a handful of businesses. The most recent have been Los Santos Customs. That was over by Casa Way. I ran that for about 2 months before I was told that my business would never get approved because poor woman that used to get materials for me, she wasn't liked by the mayor. So I took a little bit of a vacation, came back, decided to practice law, protect people's rights and whatnot. And very quickly I realized that the system was really set up to make not only the people fail, but also the offices. And that's when I said, maybe I need to step up, run for mayor myself, and start to make things better for everybody.
That's something that's very fucking admirable, because there's a lot of people that have seen the mistakes. I mean, including myself, that are just like, I don't think I can even get close to handling those things. And I have a couple of questions. We did a little bit of research. I wanted to ask about certain aspects and elements within that system that you talked
Absolutely.
about. Starting with, because I know this is a lot of listeners' hot topic here, the POD and the DOJ in general. And we've talked to a lot of people that think that it's fairly flawed in the way it works right now. What is your take on the current PD, and what are your plans for the police department?
I think this sort of goes back to legislation, right? I think a lot of times people want to blame the police department for doing X, Y, and Z, when in reality, they are just enforcing the laws that are presented for them. I think for the longest time, individuals did not know that they had the power to push legislation forward. Unfortunately, even if they did, most legislative change that was in the power of not just the city council, but the people themselves, was not exercised due to what I believe to be extreme laziness and self-centeredness, which can easily be qualified if you look at, go down to the city hall and look at what legislation is passed. Most of it is very self-serving. Very little of it targets elaborating on the law, clearing up things. I'll give you an example. If you as a civilian have been a civilian for the longest time, and you do not to the T report your gun stolen in a very specific way, you get charged with a crime that makes you not only a felon, but strips you of your weapons license, thus putting you at the as cattle for the wolves, being the many gangs in the city.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that we've heard about. Me personally, as well, as somebody that has a weapons license, is a civilian, and has had my weapon taken from me. We've experienced a couple of times where the actual registration of that firearm being robbed was not adequately input into the system, and therefore, like you said, kind of putting us in harm's way. So are you looking to kind of revamp that system the way it gets brought up, or the way people report it itself?
Absolutely. So while practicing law, I would estimate about 50% of the cases I was taking on was for the criminal negligence of a firearm. The bulk of which were cases where those individuals did indeed report to the police that their firearm was stolen, but because, like you said, the reports were not properly filled out, the onus became on the person who had the gun stolen to know that the police filed it properly, and they had no avenue by which to ensure that it was filed properly outside of filing for a FOIA, which, mind you, was not always delivered. What I'm looking to do is simplify that system. Civilians need to have their rights protected in that respect, and the way that's going to work is I want to implement a firearm registry. How we're going to achieve that is a bit unknown. It's going to really depend on what the mayor's office is able to. Let's kind of wipe that last bit. I'm going to simplify something that I started getting really complex there. I'm going to simplify it. We don't
Understood.
lose anyone on that response. The way that the mayor's office is going to be fixing it is by putting a weapons registry into place, which will allow any individual to file a affidavit, which is like a signed document saying, I lost my gun on this day, at this time, at this place, with this signature. And that will be their way of reporting their gun stolen. That removes any waste of time the police would have to spend. It would be a database by which the police and the judges within Los Santos can reference. So if any further investigation needs to be done, they can do that while immediately protecting that civilian from not having to worry whether or not the report is lost or not. And I think these sort of like simple solutions go a long way, not just in terms of saving resources, but like police department resources, but they also act as insurances, so people can continue living living their life without worry that they're gonna get a knock on the door and the FBI is gonna just bust in and start fucking their life up.
Which is a real worry for some of us. Speaking of the police department, what are you know the streets, the people, the civilians, the food court? You always hear people complaining about the police department, the police chief, all that stuff. What are some of the qualities that you look for and will be looking for in terms of police officers, a chief of police, that kind of stuff?
So for the audience that is unaware, we will later tonight at 7 p.m. The new Constitution is going to be put on for display, and from my understanding, Los Santos, the island, or San Andreas, I should say, is going to be split into two counties: Los Santos and Blaine County. I'm going to be running for Los Santos County. Now, as if elected mayor, I will have absolute power to pass legislation. That's a hell of a lot of power. But my also understanding is that I can put into place the chief of police. Now, I know that there's going to be growing worries. Who is the chief of police? Who are they going to be? Is it going to be somebody that's going to stop crime at all costs, even if it means the stepping on civil liberties? Or is it going to be a chief of police that's going to lay back and let criminals run amok? I can assure you, I can assure the audience that I will never succumb to either side. But rather, a chief of police needs to be chosen that has the people as their main priority, not locals, people. And I would like that chief of police to be one that can be very understanding of their own employees, the police officers, ensuring that they are not so stretched thin to the extent that They feel every time they come on duty, they're just going from call to call to call to call, and that their hand is forced to speed run arrests to the extent where the people they're arresting are getting exceedingly upset over the process and feeling like their time isn't considered. I have had an opportunity to speak to around 15 different offices, and while I may not be able to understand the full scope of what happens within the PD, I'm going to do my best to try to get as best of an understanding as I can do, and then help put someone in place that can let me think about how I'm going to answer this last bit here.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay. All right. I'm going to after I spend enough time speaking to different offices, evaluate. After I get done getting a good assessment, as best of an assessment as I can get of the current ongoings of the LSPD, I'm gonna give the offices a selection of options and let them pick whom they think is best. At the end of the day, I'm not a cop, right? I am only going to know what I would like to see from the offices. But the PD knows best at the end of the day.
One of the things that you mentioned in that answer, and one of the things that while I was doing some research, asking people of Los Santos and San Andreas about your campaign, is a lot of people gravitated towards the fact that you're just very transparent and the communication seemed straightforward. There's a lot of comparison to how previous offices have maybe promised the moon and not delivered, whereas you had more realistic and down to the down to earth kind of responses to everybody. Is that something that you plan on bringing? How's communication to the people of San Andreas moving forward in your opinion?
To me, a lot of people have a really odd perception of what transparency means. Transparency, in my opinion, includes communication. I'll give you an example. If I were to say, well, we are raising taxes to 50%, as an example, I could make a state announcement, but then never reference that again, which means 95% of the population has no idea that the tax has now gone up to 50%, which, mind you, I would never do. But real transparency is that when you wake up, that information is available for you to see. The way that we're looking to do this today is we're looking to do this with under my cabinet is I've been working with actually there's someone named Leah Strong. She works down at the food courts. She had a brilliant idea where a selection of my administration would maintain effectively like a living document with date stamps of big decisions that were being made, and that would be something that anybody in the city could subscribe to by simply giving us their state ID. And so anytime there was an update, that document could then be just sent to everybody. And if you kind of think about it, everyone in their groups and their businesses probably has someone that likes to stay informed. Well, they give us their state ID, they can help inform the rest. So I think that information should always be available and kind of not be hidden away behind a desk.
Yeah, absolutely. That would change a lot for a lot of people. And yeah, massive shout out to Leo Strong. She's also one of the people that helped me during my growing phase when I first moved to San Andreas. And that kind of ties into what I was going to ask next. You and I talked about businesses when we first sat for the podcast, episode 2 back in the day. business licenses is something that I've been struggling with for a little while. I've texted, I've called, I've submitted PDFs and sent all the documents and did all that stuff, and absolutely nothing has come back from it. And I know this is something that you've also struggled with in the past. What is your take on business licenses, and the growing economy that's booming in Los Santos?
Businesses in general have been absolutely mishandled. There are way too many people that I've spoken to that don't even know what the current status uh, of their business proposal is. And I think the crux of it is that the past administration had no concept of delegation. They only understood how to be self-serving. And while this is going to be kind of a recurring message, I think it's very important to say because that sort of shit cannot continue. And a framework needs to be put in place to ensure that future mayors do not use the mayor's office for their own, as a means to an end for their own needs. The solution to this is simple. Department of Commerce, which is going to be run by Eve Summers. We're looking to bring in folks like Ash Ketchup, along with other business-minded individuals that have a passion to help others. And that Department of Commerce is going to be the one-stop shop for any budding and existing entrepreneurs from being able to submit their business license or business proposal as they have been, but there will be now a body of individuals that will be tasked to review them, given approval with a reason why it is approved, if disapproved, what the reasoning is, and what the corrective steps would be. So it will no longer be this box you throw it in and then you get a green checkbox or like a red X, but rather there's going to be actual communication, people available to speak to. And from a more expansive point of view, we have artists. I'm sure you've seen my artwork. We have a
Incredible.
fantastic
Yeah.
guy named Michael who's been doing it. He's going to be
Shout
with
out to
them.
Michael Raz. Yeah, I've spoken as soon as I saw yours, I was like, yo, we're rebranding the podcast.
Yeah, I want to attract that talent, those artists over there. I want to attract some of the musicians from the different labels over there so that if you go and start like a flower shop and you submit it, you have someone that you can communicate with across all the tsunamis, that when your business proposal gets approved, you've got the resources. Oh, you need artwork? Okay, well, we got a little Rolodex here. You need like a little jingle for a radio ad? We got you right here. I want it to be that one-stop shop. So people don't find themselves, people that have these dreams have the resources necessary to succeed because businesses are the heart of what makes the city tick. And unfortunately, we've been so there's been such a drought of it that I think the city is forgetting or may not even know. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, it has been rough. As somebody that not only runs this podcast, I have a little corner shop on Grove. It has been rough trying to get any answer from anybody what I can and can't do. So that's a breath of fresh air right there.
Yeah. The key, I think, with our administration is not just delegation, but empowerment. There's a lot of people out there that want to produce, to create, to make this city amazing. And if those folks are not found, cultivated, and empowered, well, then it becomes the same status quo. And I can promise you one thing: there'll be a lot of folks that will say that they're going to do this and do that, but the question you got to ask is, are they going to be able to pull it off? Because anyone can say anything, but very few individuals can actually make it happen. Yeah, you good, Paps?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, I was thinking about, when I first moved here and looking into businesses, and we had to get everything signed by a lawyer. I remember sending you that very lengthy contract for the podcast guest thing, and I feel like back then when I reached out and tried to get a lawyer on the phone, there was plenty all across all storms. And now it feels like finding a lawyer is pretty difficult, and finding people that are interested in becoming lawyers is even more difficult. How has it been for you now that you've taken a step in that direction, which led to all of this? What are your thoughts on lawyers in San Andreas in general, and how can we keep them? Basically, is my question.
Finding a lawyer is very difficult, and there's been a mix of issues that have resulted in that. Very early on, I tried to do my best to get in touch with lawyers, see how things have been, etc. Primarily due to the past head of bar, both of them actually being effectively useless. And I challenge anyone to show otherwise, quite frankly. People have been upset for two reasons. One is the needs of the lawyers were not being looked into. For example, lawyers were unable to get FOIA requests for their clients that they were trying to defend. Lawyers would go into the cells and be lambasted. And so over time, many quit, while others that were hopefuls were waiting weeks and weeks and weeks to get a response as to whether or not they'd get a bar license. A big part of my success is going to be in ensuring that we have something akin to a bar association coming into play. So the lawyers have a community which they can thrive off of. They have the resources that they can thrive off of. And prove, hopefully, to the federal government that we can be self-controlling of the bar license. In fact, if possible, I would love the mayor to have that authority. Now, this is a bit of a pipe dream, that latter bit, but that's at least the goal that I've set for myself. Now, to help make that goal a dream, we have Abigail. Roll that back because her name isn't Abigail.
Mm-hmm. And also that goal a reality, I think.
Yep. To make that dream a reality, we've taken in Abilene Contralto into our cabinet. Fantastic defense lawyer. She's got a lot of passion behind her. She's going to be leading up that entire charge. So that's going to be her big task is how do we reach that goal? How do we turn these lawyers into the legislators? So, for example, right, Paps, you might find that there's legislation needed for in the entertainment space.
Mm-hmm.
The goal here is that you should be able to go to a lawyer that you work with and work with them to get legislation written up. And so that when it lands on the desk of the mayor, there's something there and we can get it into play. So that's kind of the dream.
Yeah, that is the dream, honestly. And
it's achievable.
That sounds incredible.
It's not only achievable, it should have been something that was done the last 7 months. There's no reason why only like 8 individuals, most of which don't even have a bar license, were the ones making the legislation. To be the experts. Written by the people of Los Santos.
So what would you say? Haven't heard all of that. The people of San Andreas, the listeners of the podcast, everybody that's visited the website or heard you speak, what would you say to those guys? Because I have heard a few, not many, but a few of them go, what stops this from turning into the same thing over again? I even heard a couple of people, you get the traditional, I'm not even going to vote because my vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want anyway. What would you say to those guys?
Could you re-ask the question?
Yeah, no worries. What would you say to those that are worried about seeing a repeat of what we've experienced for the last 7 months? There's a I've been on the streets asking people some questions, and very few of them have said, why would I even vote? My vote doesn't count. It's all gonna be the same kind of thing. What would your response be to those people that are saying, are we going to experience the same thing that we've experienced over the last 7 months?
I think apathy is a very, very dangerous pill. I think that the people should never give up. The moment the city gives up, everything crumbles. I think the past city council was an example of what not to do, and from that, I think it should be very easy to see what things. Let me roll it all back. I think apathy is a very dangerous drug to take, and I can only encourage individuals not to fall into that trap. I have zero intent to go down that path, and I think the amount of work that myself and my team have done, whether it be passing the FOIA legislation, whether it's the new weapons legislation that's coming out in the next couple of days, whether it's the work we put in to communicating with the DOJ, which is now resulting in the Constitution getting revisited, whether it's all the effort we put into the website to be very transparent about what it is that we want to do. We have, I think, shown that even before the election had started, we've been working our hardest to evolve the city forward. And I think that in and of itself is evidence that we are the complete opposite of the dog shit of a human being named Max Thoroughbred.
That was probably the perfect answer. I'll be honest with you. It's very well put. That's very well put. For those that are listening, if you want to know more, Nino, what's the website? Vote Nino?
VoteNino.com.
VoteNino.com. You'll learn more. Mr. Chavez himself has been out and about. Make sure you can maybe one of the talks, one of the rallies. Check him out. Everything should be on Twitter, or you find more on VoteNino.com.
All right.
Yeah, man. Mr. Chavez, thank you so much for your time. I think we got as much as we possibly can out of those questions. It's been incredible seeing all the work that you've put in. I'll be honest, especially since the LS Customs days over on Carcer Way.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, and you're no stranger to the podcast. You know the rules. It is only over when the guest says it's over by saying the words "hit the outro." So from Paps, I will say thank you guys for listening. Make sure if you got up to this point, you twat out the artwork. I'll hand over the mic to Mr. Chavez. Mr. Chavez, you say whatever you want to the audience, and then when you're ready, you say the 3 words "hit the outro," and that's when we'll hit it.
Hit the outro.
Hell yeah.
There is one question if you want to go back and edit it in.
Yeah, you can do that.
The question is like, how do people continue to have a say on the legislation or something like that, you know?
Okay. Okay, you want to talk about the different reps for the board of reps? Okay, perfect. All right. Let's start rolling again.
Give me a second. All right, yeah, we're ready.
All right. So one of the questions that always pops up is how do we hear the people's voice? How do people keep putting their take or speaking about the legislations, putting their, I don't know how to say it. How do I say that?
How do we ensure that once how are we going to ensure that if you become mayor that the people's voice continues to be heard?
Okay. So speaking of the legislation, how do we ensure that once you become mayor, that the people's voice continues to be heard?
I touched upon lawyers becoming legislators. That is going to be one route. But the second thing that we want to ensure, and this is why it's pivotal for our administration to win, is we are going to the way that things are going to be laid out is the mayor is going to have ultimate legislative authority. We are going to be passing some of that authority back to the people, because inherently, if I win, my passing of law is going to be based on the most popular demographic, thus putting the minority demographics on the outskirts. So we are going to be bringing. Let me roll it all back.
Yep.
If elected, I want to actually give up some of the mayoral powers to ensure that future mayors, including myself, do not have ultimate authority on all legislation that's passing in Los Santos. That becomes very draconic. The way we will be doing this is we're going to have a select men, select women process. People will vote in representatives, and those representatives will be able to cast a vote. So there would be 2 popular votes by the mayor, and then 3 representative votes by the people. So what this can do is the police department, for example, can put up a representative vote for him, and as long as they come into the top 3 selected, well, now they've got an individual that can not only speak towards any legislation that comes across our desk, but it can also vote towards it. So
Amazing. Absolutely awesome.
and that includes other groups, right? Like if there's groups that aren't aligned with my political opinions, they can still have the ability to put up a representative and make sure that voice continues to be heard over the next 3 months and so on. We want to make sure that this sort of system is established for the next mayors to come. Because if it's not, I think we are very much at risk for repeating the same mistake that we had over the last 6 months.
And I think it shows a lot in just how you said it, giving up some of your power as mayor to give more voice to the people. I think that is in contrast with everything else I've personally heard, and we've heard here on the podcast, is might be the absolutely first time anybody said anything close to that.
That's right. Our campaign is not just about supporting our constituents, but setting a framework in place for the future of the city.
Incredible. And cut. We'll
All
slot
right.
that in.
Hell yeah.
To, right after we talked about the legislations. Awesome, bro.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
That's
I
incredible.
appreciate it, Paps.
No worries at all. I'll have this up and running for you by around just before the storm tomorrow.
Oh my God, that is amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, we can. I wanna hit it while it's hot and have you be able to, if anybody asks any questions, you can just direct them. Be like, listen, there's a lot of it here.
All right. Do you think we can get like votenino.com in the tape?
Yeah, of course.
That would be sick.
That could, the way the tapes are structured, that could be like in the title.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
And in the extra information on the label, we can have that as a thing as well.
All right. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Thank you,
good,
Nino.
Looking good, Nino. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one, bro.
Yeah, looks good. Looks good.